Greetings everyone and welcome back to 365 Days of Prog. Today we're going to be reviewing the debut album of the band Maxophone. The album is called Maxophone.
Hi, my name's Naomi. I'm an avid progressive rock fan, but I'm a long ways from knowing all the prog albums out there. But this year, I'm gonna give it a try. This is 365 Days of Prog.
So Maxophone by Maxophone, their debut album, their first of a few albums they've ever released. They are an Italian prog band from the mid-70s, and their names of the songs of course have Italian names, so excuse me for the rest of this video. I don't pronounce anything correctly besides any Maxophone, which I believe to have said correctly. But with that being set aside, let us hear some of my favorite bits off of this album. Now, as I said, Maxophone are an Italian prog band from the mid-70s, and I listen to them right now, and as I listen to more and more Italian prog albums as in general or on this list, I suddenly get more and more why Italian prog is a known and well appreciated subgenre of prog as a whole. It's not that Italian prog sounds a lot different from what we're used to with, let's say Western prog, or with the US and Britain prog that was really popularized in most of the world. It actually can sound quite the same. The instrumentation, the motives, the ideas, the conceptual ideas, everything doesn't sound all that absurd and unknown. But the fact is, Italian prog and Italy as a whole had a huge prog movement back in the 70s and later on, which have created a lot of good masterpieces, which are still to this day left undiscovered by a lot of people who are too weary to getting into the foreign prog. So that's why we have the subgenre of Italian prog. Of course, we have the subgenres of a lot of different foreign progs, like, Polish prog and Spanish prog and Greek and, all stuff like that. But Italian prog is something different and very, very unique because it has generated a lot of very, very good musical pieces and albums, which are still to this day left a bit obscure by people who are too weary to go ahead and check out Italian prog as a whole. And Maxophone is a great reminder of why, if you've not given Italian prog a proper listen by now, you should really start doing so. This album is really, really good. It features great musicianship and great understanding of music and the prog genre as a whole. And this band Maxophone created quite a nice, I wouldn't say masterpiece, but a great album, which is still not very known till this day. And if you've not listened to it, you should go and listen to it. And of course, that is to go without saying. Go ahead, listen to other bands like PFM and see what this subgenre is all about. And this is an impressive debut album because Maxophone did a great job on what's found here. It's very, very masterful. Everything sounds great on here. I think all the songs are really good in their standard, but I must say that the first song is way above all the others in my opinion. It is fantastic, it is good, it encapsulates a lot of what prog is. It puts in different ideas from all over the place, from all different genres and styles of music, if I might say, into one cohesive piece, and I just love it. I had a great time listening to it, so when I finished listening to this album today, I straight away went back to the first track, listened to it again, and then listened to it for another time because it was so good. Absolutely 10 out of 10 track, my favorite off this album. So this album features 6 band members. They're all playing different instruments. No one's repeating others' instruments, at least not directly, and I love that very, very much. We of course have the usual like bass, vocals, keyboards, guitar, ensemble, and drums, of course. But we also have the woodwinds, the flutist on here, and the saxophonist, who's I believe to be the same person. And then we got the brass instruments such as the trumpets and the French horns and stuff like that, which are really, really lovely. And we have a few other intriguing instruments on here, being the vibraphone, which is really present on here, which I think does a fantastic job and kind of reminds me of Gentle Giant. And of course we have the harp, which is an instrument really not heard of a lot in the prog scene, and I think it's really, really hard to master and actually incorporate well into rock music. But when you do so correctly, I think it is a great instrument to use in a lot of sets of songs. And this album also doesn't really shy away from synthesized sounds, and I love that very, very much. A lot of things, from the drumming to the singing to the, of course, synthesizers and keyboards, they all have some synthesized sounds, which include some filters on it, of course done in the mixing, and I love that very, very much. And in this album I love it so specifically because it doesn't feel in your face. It is actually like kind of subdued in some way. You know it's there, you can sense it when you're hearing it, but it doesn't really feel like you're listening to some synthesized sounds. You're just listening to some enhancements done on masterful playing on instruments beforehand. And I love the addition of the other instruments on here, even if they're not synthesized in any way. It's just really, really fun listening to some unusual instruments found on a prog album. As you all probably know by now, my favorite piece and song is Atom Heart Mother Suit, which features the brass instruments, and I'm always happy to hear more brass instruments on any album, much like this album. And it is really just a big and a great shame that this album goes unnoticed. In the Italian prog, if you're ever going to get into that, of course there's a lot to explore, and once you do get to the Italian prog, it takes a while until you find the more obscure albums, and this one is one of those obscure albums, which probably goes uncharted by a lot of people. But let me tell you, if you're here and you're seeing this review and you haven't listened to this album, this is a gem of an album. Just go ahead and listen to it, because from start to finish, it's very engrossing and it's very fun. And I believe everyone who appreciates good music and good prog in general can have a good time listening to it. And I'm praising this album quite a lot, but I do have to say that the singing on here is a bit rough. It's not always as good as it might have been, I'd say, but it is fine nonetheless. There are certain points of this album which I kind of zoned out and thought to myself, wait, what am I listening to? But it's not really that bad, and I guess I did kind of a bad job at really being focused on this album because I had a lot of things going around me. So the fact that I was encapsulated enough by the music found on here, although I had a lot of things bothering me at the time, it's really, really good because this album is really good as a whole. So moving on to the cover of this album, I for some reason don't know if it's supposed to be like this, but this album looks like it has been through a scanner one too many times for some reason in every place I search it. But all in all, the artistic value found on here, I can't really tell if this is a very, let's say, photorealistic watercolor painting, or is this just a very non-realistic photo. I don't really know where it is. If I'd had to take a gander, I'd say that this is a painting, but honestly I don't know, and I couldn't find a lot more information about it. And I think this cover is all but a bit off. It's really kind of odd in the way that it is made. The logo is huge. It's not very appealing in any way. It has some really odd color choices, and it's just stuck on there in a way that doesn't really appease anything in the entire, creative idea of this cover. But all in all, I suppose it does get the point across, and you really get to know who this album is by, and I guess it does job. Not the best cover ever, kind of lame, kind of okay, but I guess that's all I have to say about it. But all in all, although this cover isn't so great, when talking about the album as a whole, I'd have to give it a bueno 8 out of 10. I think it's a good album. It's really, really fine. It's a hidden gem within a hidden gem of a genre and music, which honestly, I think it's all about hidden gems, because prog is just a hidden gem in rock, and Italian prog is just a hidden gem in prog, and this album is just a hidden gem in Italian prog, so it's really hard to find it. But if you're gonna listen to it now, because it's really good. And that's about it, guys. I hope that you enjoyed this one, and stay tuned for tomorrow because we're gonna be listening to the band Egg for the second time, this time with their second album being The Polite False. But that is about it, everybody. I hope that you enjoyed this video. Have a great and wonderful day, and I'll catch you all tomorrow. Bye, guys.